We have our fantasy football mid-season award for this episode. You got a song for everything, don't you?
That's like award show music. I was going to play it. We need to get sound bites.
So, for this episode, the main topic that we're going to go over here is our mid-season fantasy football awards. We're going to start this off with our Steal of the Year award. So, Cougs, who is your fantasy football Steal of the Year?
Steal of the Year. So, I'm thinking about where I drafted someone, and I'm going to say DK Metcalf as my Steal of the Year. He is currently wide receiver number 3, the third best wide receiver in fantasy football, and he was taken with an ADP of around 56, closer to 57, the 57th pick, and right now he is operating on a level that is crazy, and I'm not just talking about his tackling abilities. I mean, we've seen it. We've seen
he
him.
Should get bonus points for that chase down.
It's still like thinking of it visually still doesn't. It seems like a video game. But the numbers he's been able to put up this year, I mean, it helps that you have who I believe is going to be the NFL MVP throwing to you. But that offense is just rolling, and I think that DK Metcalf is the biggest benefactor, both in PPR and in standard leagues. He's solid.
Yeah, he's a top 3 wide receiver in both. He was drafted anywhere between the 3rd and the 5th rounds, depending on your league and depending on where people valued him. But drafted between the 3rd and the 5th rounds, and you're seeing him elevate his play to a level where he may be a first-round pick in 2021. So with my Steal of the Year, I'm going to go with a player that was drafted way later than DK Metcalf. If he was drafted at all, I'm going with James Robinson, the rookie for the Jacksonville Jaguars. He's RB4 on the season in PPR and in standard. In one league, I drafted him in the 16th round. And there were many, many other leagues where he was added as a free agent after the season had started.
I'm a benefactor of that.
So am I.
That free agency pool, baby.
He's also the award winner of the award that I made up off the top of my head called the Arian Foster Out of Nowhere Award. So that goes to James Robinson for 2020.
So, Paul, who's your Steal of the Year?
So my Steal of the Year, I go a little bit contrarian here maybe. I'm going with Alvin Kamara. Now, hear me out.
What?
Hear me out.
Now, some people drafted him 4th.
Some people drafted him 4th, but he is the RB2 in PPR this year. So I think, like I said, it's a little bit contrarian. It's not a totally out-of-the-woods guy like James Robinson. Like, oh, wow, that guy was never a factor in anything. He's not an unknown. We all know who he is. But you look at where he was drafted. He was usually like 4 or 5, maybe 6 in some leagues. But then you look at late August when there was those contract talks going on and his ADP tanked. Like, we're talking guys passed on him for a round, maybe 2, when he was like, well, you know.
For that 1 week.
Yeah, the 1 week. The 1 week.
Was scary.
If your draft was held while he was having holdout talks, he fell to anywhere between the 8th and the 14th pick.
Exactly. That's my point. And I think that's where, and then you look at, because he had a bit of a down year last season that maybe have turned off some people from him. And then now this year, he's got almost 1,000 yards from scrimmage already through only half the season. So I think that when you look at the guys taken in front of him and the circumstances surrounding where he was drafted, I think, in my mind, he qualifies as a steal.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree with that. And I think it's especially a steal when you factor in that some fantasy owners got him later in the first when he deserved to be a top 4 pick. But you look at all of the players that were drafted in the first round of 2020 fantasy drafts. If you drafted Alvin Kamara, you semi-dodged a bullet because of how many players are either injured from the first round. We're talking about CMC was hurt. We're talking about Saquon Barkley was hurt. Michael Thomas was hurt, and he was benched for a game or inactive for a game on off the field activities or fights or whatever you want to call it. You have Austin Eckler who was hurt. You have Nick Chubb who was hurt. All of these players in the first round that got hurt. Joe Mixon's another one. Half your first round got hurt, and then you have Ezekiel Elliott who hasn't been hurt, but his offense has just tanked because everyone's hurt on his offense, and his offense is ineffective. So if you drafted him in the first round, then you dodged a bullet in itself. But if you got him later in the first because of his holdout, Steal of the Year.